Hey guys, here today with another Shirogorov knife video. Today we have in front of us the Hatium. Now the Hatium, this is one of the first ones that had debuted, and this knife actually won an award at Blade Show 2023 under MACK category, Machine Assisted Custom Knives, which I assume was only born out of the fact that the knives that Sergey is producing with computer aided design and these really high tech techniques are gonna just be fundamentally different than handmade custom knives in terms of the possibilities and stuff like that, which is pretty cool to see that category being opened up. I honestly really think it's for makers like Sergey. But it's really great to see that he had won that category here. The knife that was the Blade Show winner for this year was actually in the same exact configuration, which is really cool. So really lucky to have this one here. My friend picked this up recently, and there needs to be some stuff for me to take a look at, so I thought might as well do a video on it as well while it's here. But fundamentally, the Thai Hatium and the Hatium, which this one right here is the Hatium, of course, have the same blade design, handle, clip, backspacer. Of course, the Thai Hatium is a titanium version, which was kind of ironic when it had come out, since the whole Hati concept of a knife was supposed to be a half composite material, half titanium frame lock knife design. So when you say Thai Hatium, doesn't that just mean the same thing as an F95? Yeah, it kind of was. Sergey kind of just came up with that name for fun. It did have the Hati wave pattern, kind of an updated, enhanced version of it, which is also present on the Hatium. But now we've kind of come full circle with the Hatium. This is the traditional frame lock design with half titanium, half carbon fiber on one side. So the Hati, personally, I have a really soft spot for it. It was the first knife I really thought was awesome from the Shirogorov lineup, and the first one I actually bought, first production knife that I bought from the workshop as well. So it's really great to see and talk about all these generational changes that have happened, especially with the recent Gen 3 Hati coming out as well. But anyways, let's go ahead here and talk about this specific Hatium. You can see here we have the coin. Always like to go over the coins first to kind of get a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about here. We have the blade, which is a scratch mirror S90V blade. 2.5 here, denoting the blade stock thickness. So 2.5 millimeters, just incredibly thin. That is half the blade stock thickness of the Icebreaker, which came out many years ago. Heavy 5 millimeter blade stock. 4 millimeters being the standard for a long time. We're starting to see 3.5 in the current productions, 3 millimeters in the custom divisions and most of the other customs, but 2.5, this is really a first here for the workshop, at least in something publicly presentable here. Let's see if my camera will focus here. The handle, of course, being a Hati, is half titanium. The other half is black CarboTi. And then the pivot here, we have PLDS 3.0, Pivot Load Distribution System. Again, I've done a couple of other PLDS knives as well. Kind of just take a look at some of the more recent customs if you want more information on that, but I will go over a brief overview of that again, especially since this being a half composite material knife, PLDS is really kind of showing its worth here in terms of why it was even invented in the first place. And then, of course, the roller system, the roller bearing system is the double row roller bearing system. We see this knife was created in May of 2023 this year, and we have that signature by Sergey. Now, taking a look at the blade, actually, let's go ahead and take a look at the weight here real quick. Actually, you know what, might as well measure up the size as well here while we have it in front of us open. So the knife open here, again, just like any other F95, is you're looking at just a little bit over 8 3/4 open. The blade cutting length, of course, is going to be just around 4 inches, a little bit over 4 inches. I think this is actually a little bit longer than the normal F95 as well, but don't quote me on that. And then the handle length, when closed, should be just a little bit over 5 inches. There we go. Yep, just a little bit over 5 inches here, or right at 5 inches. Now, one thing I did want to kind of mention here is the blade stock profile thickness, 2.5 millimeters, incredibly thin. I have a couple of other knives here to compare that to. Mini Quantum Sprint Run, 3 millimeters. This is something that you're most likely to see in Sergey's other customs and also some recent custom divisions, such as the Hati Magnetic and the F95T. And as you can see here, visibly noticeable. Performance, probably not going to see too much of a difference here, but stepping that up to 3.5 millimeters, which is the current blade stock for production knives, the newer production knives, and even some other knives such as the Ursus line here, you can definitely start to see the difference when taking a look at the flipper tab here. Bumping it up even more, taking a look at 4 millimeters, the old blade stock thickness for the revised production knives, and for many years before that, you can see that, wow, we're starting to get really thick here. Just incredible to see how slimmed down things have gone. And then when you take a look at some of the older limited knives and kind of older customs as well, 4.5 millimeter blade stock thickness, just incredible to see that difference here. We're almost looking at just half, a little bit more than half that thickness here. Just incredible to see the progression for Sergey's knives, 2018, 2023, just 5 years. Really big difference in the design philosophy, even though the overall profile has stayed the same. But anyways, going and taking a look at that blade again, you're going to see a lot of my face and my setup here. I apologize for that. That's just the nature of Sergey's mirror finishes. We have an S90V blade, S90V being one of Sergey's all-time favorite steels. One thing that some people had noticed is that the S90V, specifically for S90V, the Rockwell hardness on the blades after heat treat seemed to be on the lower end. This is probably attributed to the fact that Sergey has been using S90V for quite a long time. When you compare that to M398, S125, S110V, which the workshop website states to be at a significantly higher hardness. It's probably because they just haven't updated that information. Based on our latest ask, it seems that S90V has been updated to around 63, 64 Rockwell, which seems insane for S90V, according to my friend. But, I don't doubt that that's a mistake, or I don't doubt that, I doubt that that is a mistake, sorry. And I'm not sure, I actually need to clarify on that, but S90V at 64 seems pretty crazy, given that it is quite a wear resistance steel with fairly good toughness given the amount of wear resistance it has. Taking a look at the blade here again, this is the scratched mirror finish. We've seen several iterations of scratched mirror. I've actually done some other knives in scratch mirror, I believe, the RQ36, which didn't really have the greatest finish to me. It was kind of like, it had half the amount of scratches, which you would think maybe less scratches would be nicer, but I think honestly, if you're gonna do a scratch mirror finish, you need to go all the way and have a significant amount of scratches here to kind of have a uniform finish across the blade here. And you can see that this current iteration here, just like the Mini Quantum that I reviewed recently, it has a good amount of scratches here. But you take a look at it in the off angle and you get that really nice mirror look. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, something that's going to hide wear very well. Adding any additional scratches to here most likely will not be noticeable, especially given the high hardness of the steel as well. But, something that does look aesthetically pleasing, especially when taking photos, which everybody loves to do. One thing as well, here you can see that we have satin flats here. Again, very typical to see given the knife blade configuration. And of course, like other newer F95 type designs, especially on the custom divisions, we have that updated kind of extract cut that kind of extends really far out. And the jimping on top here, while it's incredibly thin, so it's hard to see, we do have those kind of milling patterns inside of the grooves of the jimping on top here. Man, the jimping, again, I've said this many times in many other videos, really not too functional here, more for aesthetic looks. But when you have it being this thin as well, it's just crazy to see how thin this knife is, putting up against my F7 here. It's pretty crazy to see the blade thicknesses. Moving on to the handle, we do have this very beautifully done pivot screw, which actually is part of the PLDS plates that are on both sides. Talk about that a little bit later as we take a look at the lock side here, but this iteration has really nice kind of horizontal milling on the top and bottom parts of the screw, and also this really nice satin flat here at the high point of the duck foot. As you can see, this is a three-dimensional, really don't want to call it screw. Start calling it PLDS base plate or PLDS plates here. But yeah, really nice satin finish on the high flats, which is a really nice change, especially since the older knives, the customs where they were flat, since they were done completely in satin, it was a lot easier to get that finish kind of scratched up really quickly, as satin steel scratches quite easily. With this just high points of this three-dimensional screw here being satined, much less material, much less area to get scratched up. Oh, you know, one last thing I want to talk about here on the blade, and you can see it when closed and open, is we do have just a little bit of skeletonization on the flipper tab here peeking out at you. First time that we've kind of seen this on the Hatium design here. And again, I guess it just really goes in emphasizing the lightweight design, the thinness of the blade profile. Really cool to see that little accent here over the Hatium design. Going back to the actual handle material here, we have black CarboTi. Black CarboTi, or CarboTi in general, using very thin carbon fiber thread, again around 1/3 the thickness of normal carbon fiber. Very similar actually to what you're getting with black carboquartz. For those who don't know, only the non-black colors of carboquartz have actual quartz in them, because that quartz is actually what you can dye different colors as opposed to carbon fiber, which can only be black. And so you get very similar properties to black carboquartz here. The weave pattern is slightly different, but again, because that carbon fiber thread is so thin, you get this really nice patterns of the layers of epoxy, or the pre-pregnated epoxy sheets kind of shining through. And as you can see here, the carbon fiber really catches the light in really nice ways in the sunlight. And you can see the light kind of traveling across the handle here. Really nice look, especially in harsher lighting. You kind of get that effect. I have really neutral lighting setup here, or at least I try to have it be quite neutral, so you don't get quite an effect here. But even here, just rotating the handle, you can see the carbon fiber playing with the light here. And I really love that aspect of this material, whether it be black carboquartz or black CarboTi. The Hati wave here is the exact same pattern that we see on the Hatium, which is kind of an enhanced pattern. You can see here we have the traditional Hati wave motif, but if you take a look closer, you can see that we kind of have these additional ridges that come in, intersect the wave and kind of shift the wave line just a little bit. Really nice effect here, and really goes to show how Sergey can kind of refresh something and give it a new and interesting look. Really love that enhanced Hati wave here. Actually, if you take a look at the lock side later, you can see it a little bit better in that titanium finish. One other interesting thing as well is because we have a carbon fiber show side, unlike the F7, which you can do kind of this clip screw to backspacer kind of bolted onto the show side, so we have no rear body screw. Can't really do that with a knife like the Hatium or Hatium, since it's so thin. On the Hatium, we have a blind screw, so the body screw is located on the lock side, but since you don't really want to tap into carbon fiber, especially carbon fiber being this thin, we have a body screw on the show side here. Which is quite interesting, especially because when you take a look at the magnetic had kind of this zirconium plate here, which the rear screw or the rear body screw would thread to on the lock side, but Sergey has kind of omitted that, especially since the logo is located somewhere else on the knife. Logo is actually right here on the inside, behind the stop pin here on the titanium side. Not sure if I can get that to focus. Nice, pretty dark, but you can see it like right here. Taking a look at the lock side here, again, we have this inlay of CarboTi that is kind of just the updated Hati design. The Hati Gen 3 has this as well. One thing that I do like to see is that because of the texturing on the handle in general, as many of you guys know, the Hati Gen 3 does not have that iconic Hati wave from previous generations. We do have this milling here on the insert, which is really nice. And in fact, you know, I'm totally ignoring the fact that the titanium here is done in this quite unique finish, this kind of black stonewash finish, which we really haven't seen from the workshop, and I think goes really well with the black CarboTi. Again, one of my favorite all-time knives, the Custom Division Hati wow. Hati Seashell 3D with that PVD handle, that black titanium handle with the black carbon fiber, I think looks incredibly nice. We really haven't seen the workshop do these kind of finishes, whether PVD or this kind of black wash finish here. So really cool to see this on the Hati, even though, you know, if you showed this to me, if you showed me this finish, I wouldn't really think that it would be one that Sergey would want to use on his full customs, which are usually more refined. As you can see here, we can definitely see the handle being tumbled here alongside with the clip. But, you know, going alongside with this scratch mirror finish, this is a very, very comfortable knife to use as a user. In fact, if I was looking for another custom, this is actually really high on my list here, just given the fact that the finish is incredibly wear resistant in terms of hiding scratches and stuff like that. And it's just so thin and light, it just kind of hides in your pocket. But anyways, I really like that the CarboTi kind of blends in with the black stonewash titanium handles, as I honestly prefer not to have the inlay on the lock side, and that goes for all of the new Hati generations, just comparing them to the previous older Hatis. But I kind of like that this isn't popping out a little too much, and a lot of people really actually seem to like this inlay on the lock side. Overall, other than the inlay, because it is a Hati with composite material on the show side, the handle itself doesn't differ too much from the Ti Hatium, which I've done a review on the channel already. But taking a look here at the other side of the PLDS, we have the top screw and then the other PLDS plate. Again, PLDS, pivot load distribution system. This knife is using the third iteration here, the 3.0, of which what has changed is the use of these kind of wings, which will help to center or index the PLDS plates in the handle. If you take a look here, you can actually see the PLDS plates extending past the pivot area and the blade. And what this does is it indexes the PLDS plates so that we always have this screw being indexed, or not screw, but we have this kind of duckfoot shape index in the correct direction. You know, for the older customs and custom divisions, we'd have just like a ball bearing and a little dimple on the screw and the handle, which would center this actual screw. But with PLDS, because these plates are press fitted into the handle and act as both the external pivot accent here on the show side, but also act as the bearing race and, you know, surface which the bearings roll on, they need to be indexed correctly if you want to have this design, you know, appearing in whatever direction you want. Previous iterations of PLDS would extend out, the radius of the circle would extend out just far enough where it would be slightly intersected by the pivot pin. And so the pivot pin intersecting into a little cutout on the PLDS base plates would index it. But now we have a much more robust solution here where the plates extend out significantly into a specifically cut out shape into the handle that's just not like a circle shape. That's what's basically helping with your indexing, and it also just looks freaking neat. I'll actually see if I can add a photo in the description here of the PLDS base plates for this model, and it's just really cool to see the amount of milling. There's actually radial milling around the base plate wings as well. One other feature with the PLDS is we have reverse screw threading. That basically just helps with the keeping this screw tight. As you can see, when you flip this knife open, it's putting torque in a counterclockwise direction, which for a normal screw thread would be the same direction as unscrewing it. So having this screw be reverse threaded for the top screw here is basically going to help mitigate that, since any rotational torque applied to this top screw for the PLDS is just going to be in the same direction as if you were tightening it, which is kind of a nice thought. I've actually talked to Sergey about this, I believe last year, and he said that that was something that he had actually been thinking about, and so to see it actually manifested here in the new, you know, the customs for this year is pretty cool to see that kind of constant improvement. Otherwise here, last thing to talk about, the back spacer here is incredibly thin to match the blade stock. You can see here it's done in this polished titanium finish with satin on the flats of it. Very hard to see as you're really only looking at from the back spacer portion, the satin flats, but really love this finish that Sergey had been doing on the these back spacers for the Custom Division Magnetic, the older Hatiums before they had transitioned to kind of a fat style backspacer. When that happened, I was really disappointed, since I really liked the initial Hatium backspacers, which had a similar style to this. But now it seems like perhaps maybe he's reserving that style for the Hatium, which again, combined with this thin blade stock, having this thin backspacer is definitely the way to go. Would really not like to see the new fat style backspacers on the Hatium being used here on a knife with a blade this thin. Otherwise, another interesting thing to note here, something that I noticed, is there's actually washers that are spacing off the backspacer, as if the backspacer could have been made thicker, but he decided to, Sergey decided to kind of emphasize the thinness. So instead he kind of put little washers here. I can imagine that'd be fun to assemble, having, you know, two washers flanking the, you know, the front backspacer pin, and then having two washers that you need to put a screw through as well. Doesn't seem fun, but you know, hey, if it's meant for emphasizing the thinness of the backspacer so we can make it just you know, 0.5 millimeter thinner, I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, I can't imagine other than perhaps maybe he made the backspacer too thin, but I believe I have actually seen two Hatiums where they both had these washers on the backspacer, so kind of just an interesting tidbit here. This last thing here, and I always like to show off the signature on this knife, but oh man, I wish I had my light here. I don't have my light. You're just gonna have to trust me, but the signature is on this kind of rear skeletonized portion of the handle. And one other thing to note as well, and as the knives get this thin, it's just hard to get enough light in here, but there is internal milling on both the carbon fiber handle side and the lockside titanium side here as well, in the same pattern as a Hatium. This is something that we've noticed has changed over the years. Previously, knives that were done in carbon fiber usually didn't have internal milling on them, just because the carbon fiber is supposed to be lighter than the titanium itself. But it's really nice to see Sergey go the extra mile even for carbon fiber, helping to reduce the weight here as well. Speaking of which, I didn't even measure the weight of the knife. Wow, what a disappointment for a knife that's being billed as so thin and lightweight here. Taking a look at the weight, we're looking at 3.15 ounces. You know, taking a look at the current production knives, they're usually weighing anywhere from around 4.5 to 5 ounces. So, man, that definitely is an incredible reduction in weight compared to the current production knives. And of course, this is something you can definitely feel. It feels incredibly light. In fact, putting up against my mini quantum here, my mini quantum weighs more, which probably can be attributed to the bronze accents, but this is a knife that is significantly larger and it's weighing in at a little bit less, which, man, that's incredible. Actually, putting up against my F7, yeah, almost 5 ounces here. But otherwise, that's pretty much it for this knife. I can't wait to see if we're going to be seeing more 2.5 millimeter blade stock knives in the future, or if this is going to be specifically reserved for the Hatium model, which honestly would kind of give the Hatium kind of a reason for existing outside of the fact that it's just a composite material for half the handle. Having something super thin and super light, like this is the model that kind of does that. Really interested to see that, especially since Sergey's recent shift to 3mm blade stocks have been fairly recent, only within the past year and a half or so. So again, really interested to see the direction, but really happy to see the Hati finally receive its new custom iteration here. It's been a long time. I was actually asking Sergey whether or not the Hati was going to even be a thing anymore for the customs a little bit over a year ago, and he wasn't really sure, but looks like he had this up his sleeve, and I really love it. I'd love to see different iterations, maybe fancier iterations with, you know, more fancy materials such as Damascus, but I guess only time will tell. That's pretty much it for this one, man. This one ran really long, but again, really excited about this knife. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.